All right, so from a few of my previous speeches, you guys might remember or have come to know that I've always been a big fan of baseball. And as a kid, a few players in particular stood out to me, those players being Barry Bonds and Derek Jeter. When you hear these two players, you might have some words that come to mind when you think of them. For Bonds, they might be words like cheater, liar, steroids. For Jeter, probably some more positive words like clean, classy, or captain. Even though Jeter's a well-known ladies' man and not exactly in the most committed way, you all probably identify more positively with him than Barry Bonds. My 7-year-old self judged these players based solely on what they did on the field. Bonds for hitting mammoth home runs, 762 of them, and Jeter for hustling like no one else, diving into stands to catch foul balls. I'll admit that I cried in September watching Derek Jeter's final at-bat after a season of long farewells, but what really bothers me is that Barry Bonds never got any type of positive farewells. Instead, during his final season, he would get syringes thrown at him when he was standing in left field. Jeter is no doubt a future Hall of Famer, while Bonds will probably never get into the Hall of Fame, all because of what he did and the era he did it in. While conducting research on performance-enhancing drugs in baseball over the past few weeks, I've made my previously existing stance on the topic even stronger. It's important that you have a well-informed opinion on a topic that is key in judging the character of so many prominent American athletes that so many look to as role models. Performance-enhancing drugs are controversial because fans may consider them cheating. However, I believe that the players are not the problem. Rather, it is a policy regarding the PEDs. Performance-enhancing drugs should be legalized in professional baseball. Today I will tell you a little about the history of PEDs in baseball and speculate on why players who have knowingly used illegal PEDs lied about use. I'll then offer my view on the issue and give reasons why I stand where I do. The ban of performance-enhancing drugs in baseball has tainted the game and ruined many players' careers and reputations. Anabolic steroids are illegal in baseball. George Mitchell, a lawyer who was hired by the commissioner to write a report on steroids, describes them as natural or synthetic versions of testosterone which foster muscle growth and limit muscle breakdown, in turn reducing recovery time for athletes. Professional baseball players' jobs is to perform at the highest level possible, and they do whatever it takes to gain a competitive advantage. They knowingly cheat in other ways that are typically seen as part of the game. They'll trap balls and say they made a catch that they know they didn't. They'll put substances on their hats or arms that they're not supposed to have. Surgeries to enhance performance are also legal. So for example, Tommy John happens when a player tears a ligament in his throwing arm and they take a tendon from his wrist or hamstring and place it into the elbow. And oftentimes players come back even better or just as good as they were before. Another example is Bartolo Colon, who was a successful major league pitcher having extreme pain in his shoulder and elbow. He had a few mediocre seasons, and then following those, in April 2010, he had stem cells removed from bone marrow and fat and injected into his ligaments in his rotator cuff. Following the surgery, Colon was 37 years old, and he came back and produced better numbers than he had the previous 5 years before. Those who get caught taking PEDs either get help covering it up or lie about their usage, which in turn cause their character and careers to be ruined. In an article on PEDs' impact on culture, Joe Solberg, a law professor at Illinois State University, points out that in 1998, a bottle of androstenedione was found in power hitter Mark McGwire's locker. The drug was not banned at the time, but it did indeed enhance performance. Solberg reminds us that McGwire admitted to using andro and clearly indicated that many other players also used the drug. Subsequent uproar, however, was not directed at McGwire or other players for their use of andro, but instead at the reporter that reported the story. Nowadays, people who are caught taking performance-enhancing drugs are looked down upon, and those who are not caught are assumed to be clean, even though they may be enhancing as well. Alex Rodriguez is the youngest player to hit 600 home runs and currently has 654 career home runs, according to MLB.com, even though he sat out entire last season due to suspension. So allegations of his use of performance-enhancing drugs surfaced in January 2013. He continued to lie about ever taking performance-enhancing drugs until January of 2014 when the federal authorities came after him. He eventually got suspended by the MLB for 211 games, and it got reduced to 162 games eventually, which is the length of an entire season. But I ask why did Alex Rodriguez lie? It's because he feared the consequences that would come with admittance. No one can deny he's a great player, but his integrity is tarnished forever because he wanted to protect himself. Now that you know a few specific ways, not limited to illegal performance-enhancing drug use in baseball, in which baseball players have and still do enhance performance, I'd like to offer some reasons as to why I stand on the side of legalization of PEDs in baseball. Performance-enhancing drugs should be legalized in baseball because it would make the game better. Baseball fans want to see players perform their best day in and day out. There's nothing worse than going to the ballpark and learning that your favorite player isn't playing that day because of a minor injury or the need for rest, especially when you used to attend only a few games per season. It is understandable that players need this rest, however, as the MLB season is 162 games in 180 days. The legalization of PEDs could help players recover faster and be able to play more, in turn giving fans what they want to see, baseball players playing baseball. The legalization of PEDs could also level the playing field. So many players take them, as so many have been busted in the past 15 years for taking them, they wouldn't have to lie about them. Major League Baseball would also not have to define a gray area of what drugs are too enhancing, because technically caffeine is a performance-enhancing drug. I also want to stress that performance-enhancing drugs do not hit home runs. It's not easy to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball 450 feet. Athletes also would have to understand the risks and realize that they would not have to take PEDs to be great players. Athletes, one of the most common things in baseball is chewing tobacco, and athletes knowingly drink a lot, and both those things have been shown to cause negative side effects, but people still do them. Simply playing a sport and putting your body under stress is a risk. And lastly, Derek Jeter is an example of a player who did not take performance-enhancing drugs. Played during the steroid era, it is one of the greatest players ever. Performance-enhancing drugs should be legalized in professional baseball. I just told you a little bit about the history of PEDs in baseball, offered my view on the issue, and gave reasons why I stand where I do. Should players who want to be the best continue to be penalized and have their reputations ruined? Should a man who hit 762 career home runs be kept out of the Hall of Fame? Hopefully you now have a better informed response to each of these two questions and understand why, as an avid baseball fan, I believe that the problem with performance-enhancing drugs in baseball is not the players, but the policy. And I think you should too. Thank you.